The DC-10 with a mixed reputation. Once on a 1979 day, an engine exploded. Watch the episode. Airbus Aviation, 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 Airbus Aviation. So it starts when the DC-10 lifts from the ground. A small development crack had accumulated during the number 2 engine's manufacturing. The number 2 engine is specifically the rear-mounted engine, meaning that it has some critical components. It is effectively placed like inside the tail fin. Anyway, let's get to the main story. The DC-10 flies over the ground. It nicely maintains 22,000 feet. At United Airlines, it was Child's Day. A ticket for a child cost a penny that day. But that would be a little unfortunate for the babies that were on the flight. There are definitely a lot. Anyway, let's get to the main plane. It's a DC-1032. These planes were getting old, but they're still, very good. A reasonable option. The aircraft was, okay, it had a mixed reputation, as I said in the beginning. I don't know why they retired it. Let's get to the plane itself here. What happened? As it was flying, it was just flying nicely on autopilot. The cabin crew had already finished with their service, but there was a particular passenger in the aircraft that would be a little special. There was a DC-10 instructor on board, and this would be a little good for the pilots. Obviously, you still don't know the ending of this flight, even though you might have heard of it. And you already know that I'm using the wrong livery, because I don't have the correct livery. Okay. So, the airplane is flying now. It's just flying. Nothing appears to be wrong. At least for now, nothing is wrong. But suddenly, something quite weird happens. An engine explodes. But that hasn't happened yet. I just have mistaken part of my video that went a little long. Okay, now let's get to the engine explosions. A national air flight on a DC-10 had already had its number 3 engine explode. But in this case, it was the rear-mounted particular number 2 engine that you see here. It's on the tail, as you can probably tell. And now that little crack in the fan was just getting bigger and bigger every second. And it would soon hit breaking point. Still hadn't reached breaking point, but was quite close to breaking point for sure. The DC-10 continued flying. Passengers just sitting at normal, unaware of the crack that had been developing since this number 2 engine had been manufactured. This particular one. And it was about to spell disaster for everyone on board. The DC-10 continued flying above the sky with absolutely no idea that its number 2 engine was about to fail. I don't know how many minutes from disaster, but it was quite close to disaster when the number 2 engine crack began. The number 2 engine's fan blade began to fail. Still, the engine hadn't exploded, but the fan blade was already beginning to fail. Which was still moments away from exploding. It hadn't exploded yet, but it was almost at breaking. The DC-10 continued to fly, effectively normal, since the number 2 engine wouldn't affect the drag in its current state, but it would be affecting drag quite soon. But those are the least of the pilot's concerns. But the aircraft, it was still flying. The pilots had put it on autopilot and was just calmly enjoying the flight. Nothing was stopping them. They had a flight ahead of them. Quite a big one, okay? It was just the most devastating flight. If something went wrong, or something would go. Suddenly, the aircraft had an explosion. It was rocked. Right? Okay. The video is a bit messed up, but the aircraft did have an explosion. It was rocked. Okay? It was now on, basically collision course. With no number 2 engine. The captain called out, "Check the gauges." The flight engineer called out, "Hydraulics are 0, all of them." The captain responded with, "Really?" And this was true. When the number 2 engine had exploded, shattering the fan blades, the fan blades had shattered back into hydraulic lines, cutting them in half. Effectively, all hydraulic control was lost. The pilots had attempted a very strict takeover of the aircraft. They couldn't use their control columns. The aircraft was stuck in a right turn, but then they managed to use the engines. The captain called out, "I'll go forward 10%, you go down 10%, to try to level the aircraft out from its right effective inferno." Both pilots lowered power on the engines. Right engine effectively dying down. The left hitting her. Now the captain said, "How are we going to land this thing?" They chose Sioux City Airport, and now they're heading towards the airport. Everything was dependent if they could make it to the airport. With no hydraulical control, they had regained control of the jet, but there was nothing they could do, okay? They were just turning, hoping that the aircraft would just land before it actually began fighting against them. Their landing was about to turn into an absolute fight for survival.
500, 400.
Suddenly, the captain called out, "We're turning left, 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 and then we're gonna try to stop it with rudder." He was referring, to the aircraft rolling. Bye, guys. I don't know how to end this outro. It's just the weirdest outro I have ever seen.